Okay, welcome everyone. I am Joshua Pfeiffer, and if you've watched the Wiseberg material at all, you may have seen me interviewing various people. But what you have not seen is me interviewing the man himself, the Reverend Guntars Baikovs, the creator of Wiseberg Academy. So I'm very pleased today to introduce Guntars, and today is an opportunity to learn about who he is, his own faith journey, where his inspiration came from for Wiseberg Academy, and I'm hoping that as you learn more about the backstory, so to speak, you'll be able to connect better with the material on Wiseberg, which is in which there are many blessings to be received. So Guntars, welcome to the interview for your own project.
Yes, thank you, Josh, and I'm sure all pleasure is mine. And
So perhaps you can begin, Guntars, for those who don't know you at all, just tell us very briefly a little bit about yourself.
It's difficult to tell briefly because the story goes on. But just briefly, yes, I come from. I was born in Latvia, born in Soviet Union, in non-Christian family, no Christian connections whatsoever. So I am adult convert to Christianity, to Christian faith, and people speak about spiritual journeys. So what was your spiritual journey like? And I thought about it, and I think it's interesting. It's almost always much more than just spiritual journey. So, in my case, in case of my family, it was also socioeconomic journey, and it was even geographical journey. And so the Lord called us, and when He called us, so He took us from a different environment. My previous life before my Christian life was mostly related with a business environment. Mm-hmm. So He took us out of business environment and into ministry. Most of our friends changed. And that's interesting. Brings to mind that interaction between Peter and Jesus, Matthew 19, where Peter says, "You see, Lord, we have left so much, and what will we have?" And He says, "Oh, whatever you've left, you'll get it back 100 times." And it's been amazing. It's been amazing. The Lord has brought us together with people whom we otherwise would not have met. And in that sense, it's been an incredible journey. And also, as I mentioned, geographically as well. So Latvia, US, and now Australia.
I mean, already I know that I can see these connections between your own journey and where you've ended up, particularly in this Wiseberg project, because one of the emphases that you'll see in the material that Guntars has is this emphasis on worldview and how the Christian faith is not just one little part of a Christian's life, but it affects everything. And you've experienced this in a very real way, where even your social circles were changed. The way you saw the whole world was changed, and the way you worked and what industry you were involved in, all of this, and then for you, even the geography of the world changed somewhat in your Christian journey. So that's interesting how that is a part of the Wiseberg sort of approach, I think.
Yes, certainly. My own personal experience has shaped my interests and also the way I communicate, and that's certainly so.
So how old were you when you became a Christian?
I don't think I can put a finger on it and say, oh, this happened that day or that day, and they've been gradual. The Lord has interacted with me throughout my life, and there was more connection with the church, late teenagers, early 20s, which didn't last long, and unfortunately or fortunately by God's providence, and so after that I spent almost next decade in living very, very worldly life, but then again receiving this second, or I don't know, maybe that wasn't second, maybe it was third or fourth chance, and then yes, early 30s, when we really got hooked up
And if we just fast forward to now, just so people have a snapshot of who you are, you're married, have family, and what do what's your day job, those sorts of things?
Okay, yes, married, have family, so we have 5 children, 3 daughters, 2 sons, and we have 5 grandchildren. Yes, that's where we are. And right now I serve as a pastor in Adelaide, in Glendale, Lutheran Church. So that's my day job, at least part of it. And another part, obviously, this Wiseberg Academy ministry, which I'm somehow trying to fit in my spare time.
Mm-hmm. And so we'll get to Wiseberg Academy more specifically very shortly, but just to fill in a few more gaps there along the way. So you are from Latvia, and you became a Christian in Latvia, although you didn't grow up one there, in Soviet times, and you've ended up here on the other side of the world in Adelaide as a pastor in the Lutheran Church of Australia. So just tell us a little bit more about that journey and what you did along the way. And did you become a pastor in Latvia or Australia? Did you do anything else in between?
When the good Lord invaded our lives and turned them upside down, I found myself in a situation where I was really hungry and thirsty to learn more. I felt like I've missed out on something during those empty years, and I just wanted to catch up. So I was really keen to learn and read and understand things. And so that's how the Lord led me to the seminary, Lutheran Academy in Latvia. So seminary, I was ordained, served for a little while, but that thirst and desire to learn more, to understand more, just wouldn't leave me. It just wouldn't leave me. And when opportunity presented to continue studies in US, in St. Louis, Missouri, so we, after a very brief family discussion, we said, yes, of course we are going. And that's how we ended up in US. And again, in a sense, it was mostly the desire to learn. You know how for different people, Christian faith and their Christian communities, it may be about different things. It may be community, it may be partly family tradition or connections and so on. And for me, probably few things that stand out is one is the truth, and another would be wisdom. So reading scriptures, learning more and more, those two aspects I just found so fascinating. They help us to understand this world, understand ourselves, understand the big story of humanity, understand our own stories, understand our own actions, what's wrong with us, and what the good Lord has done for us and what He has prepared for us.
So obviously that theme of wisdom, which is a big part of this project that you've embarked on now, that is something that shows up quite a while ago then in your thinking, in your journey. So is there something about that theme of wisdom is there a reason that particularly struck you or grabbed you? And are you able to reflect on that at all?
Of course, I've been reflecting on it, and initially it certainly wasn't in my mind. At least it wasn't shaped using language of wisdom. It was quite early, probably in my studies already in Latvia, when I came to realize that when you become a Christian, it will change everything in your life. The center of your life changes. If up to that moment you are the center of your life, then suddenly the center of your life is triune God, our Lord Jesus Christ. So I came to these thoughts reflecting on first commandment. So what does it mean that God is your God and you should fear and love and trust Him above all things and expect all good things from Him? And how should it change our life? How should it shape our life? And I did not have much answers initially, and did not perhaps have even intellectual tools to formulate those answers. But so I had this sense that okay, if the Lord has given Himself completely to us for our sake, He expects the same thing from us, that we will give our lives to Him. So what exactly does it mean? What does it mean that I, as individual, I entrust my life to the Lord? How does it change how I think about myself? How does it change my priorities? How does it change my activities? How does it change my relationships? How I think about my relationships? Does it change my economic activities, work life and business and so on? And those questions began to kind of pile up, and I was looking for answers. And there is, as you well know, there is a technical term for one of problems we as Christians are dealing with, so-called Sunday-Monday gap. where for many Christian faith is that's sort of my inner thing, inner feeling, inner values, and I may contribute sometime on Sunday morning, but once I leave the church grounds, essentially I live the same secular life as everyone else. Mm-hmm. So it may seem that the Christian faith does not have much impact on our daily lives, how we run them, how we think about them, and I was kind of intrigued to explore that direction more and more and more, and then that was already after moving to St. Louis, beginning studies in Concordia Seminary. I came across this idea, which initially kind of shocked me. I struggled to believe it. I struggled sort of to embrace it. It seemed too big. It didn't seem like plausible, and that there is such a thing as God's design for His creation, or God's order of creation. So God reveals Himself in the Bible as the Creator, mm-hmm. which doesn't simply mean that He let everything be, but He also orders His creation. He establishes rules, laws of creation, and we can obviously observe it in creation in a wider sense. But the same is true for us as human beings, as human community, and I found that idea fascinating. If there are such thing as God's good design for our lives, something that He has intended for us, if we can learn and discover it, imagine to what blessed lives it would lead. Mm. And it's interesting, I came across it in both in systematic studies and especially in biblical studies, especially through Old Testament, and seeing this concept of becoming clearer and clearer to me. And I was just fascinated because imagine, so you go to doctor, you feel unwell, you go to doctor and they take your blood test. So results come back, and there is a long list of different indicators, and doctor can just glance over and say, oh, this is okay, this is okay, this is not, this is something suspicious is here. And so similarly, so what they essentially do, how can they evaluate so quickly? Because they know what the norm, what the ideal is. If we learn this God's good and wise design for our lives, that is same ability is given to us. So we can look at our lives and we can say, oh yeah, this is where pretty good, and oh, this is where I'm really going against God's design. That's why all those problems. Mm-hmm. We can see it in lives in others. Mm-hmm. So it's transforming. It's I found it as such a powerful concept. It's so underutilized, almost nowhere used.
It's really helpful to hear how you came to seeing things like this, and for me, I've reflected on this in some of the other videos that I've done with Wiseberg Academy, that it seems to me that your personal experience is extremely helpful for the time we're coming into as a church, particularly in the West, because a part of this Sunday-Monday gap and a part of this disconnect that you're describing, it seems to me, is that, okay, there has been a time in Christian history, in the West at least, when you could argue that society and culture has been so saturated in the Christian faith that that people could go to work on a Monday, and broadly speaking, the sort of lifestyle and morality and the way the workplace was conducted basically rested on a Christian foundation, broadly speaking, in some sense. Now that's drastically has fallen and is falling away now, and so people find themselves completely disoriented. Now what's interesting in your case is that you grew up not really having as much of that, and so you can see this, I think, more acutely than many of us can. And so it's fascinating how you had this personal experience. This emphasis grabbed you at seminary in a profound way, and it also is incredibly important for our context that we're coming into in the West in particular. So ordained in Latvia, grew up in Latvia, ended up in St. Louis doing these seminary studies. And I've asked you this question once before, I remember. How on earth did you end up, not just in Australia, but in South Australia, in the Barossa Valley of all things? And your answer at that point was something like, well, I just woke up one day and here I was in the Barossa Valley. So
Yes, it hasn't changed. And give a little bit more background details. And so we made a good friendships with a couple of Australian pastors while I was in St. Louis. Dr. Hensley, one of them, Dr. Lockwood, another. And when our study time was approaching toward the end, So we're looking what's the next step in our lives, so Michael Lockwood, Dr. Michael Lockwood, he was the one who said, "Oh, you should come to Australia. You should come to Australia." And actually, I don't know the whole backstory. There are some mystery for me as well. But no, anyway, we received this call from Australia, and then, as you said, one morning we just woke up in Barossa. Well, that was it.
Well, and we're very glad that you're here, and still with strong connections, of course, back to your home country of Latvia and the United States, for that matter. Yeah. Okay, so more specifically, then, to do with this Wiseberg Academy, we've heard a bit of the backstory and some of how the foundations were laid. But is there anything more that you'd like to say about where the inspiration came from to launch a project like this when you're already a busy father, husband, parish pastor, arm wrestler, various other things on the side?
Glad you mentioned arm wrestler, among others. So I mentioned that I'm adult convert, and I guess there is something about adult converts. So we've lived on both sides, put it that way, and I imagine because of that we have, in most situations, we have experienced this God's intervention in our lives in a more dramatic way, in a more changing way, more transforming way, and adult converts, at least in my experience, not just looking at my personal life, but also people whom I've met, they're usually very passionate about sharing their faith.
Completely agree, yeah.
Yes.
My experience as well.
Yes. Because you see, our life before our Christian life, it was a good life. According to worldly standards, it wasn't just good, it was great life. And so we can say we have tasted best from both realms and both sides, and so as soon as those events unfolded, as soon as we were drawn into a Christian community, the joy, the excitement, discovering this gracious God, discovering the truth, discovering this God's wisdom, it was just flowing over. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't keep silent, and in a way that has marked our life since. And probably that needs to be that explains loss of many of our previous connections. What is going on with those Baikovs? Why have they changed so much? And what is wrong with them?
People only have so much tolerance for that.
People have only so much tolerance. We respect you, we love you, brother. Yes, but this is too much, and that's it. And so the passion to share was with us, put it that way, since very beginning. It's almost like you have found this treasure of joy and beauty and everything, and the treasure which multiplies if you share it. So how can you not share it? How can you not share it? And in a sense, that's been probably one of driving forces at the background of studies and research and writing and publishing and things like that. And these are just people. You don't know what you're missing out. Yeah. How can I tell you? How can I tell you better? How can I explain? How can I give it to you in a way that perhaps will connect to you, that you will be able to relate? And no, that's certainly sort of a broader background. And
I think too, by the way, my experience is sometimes this is even more frustrating for people within Lutheran circles, because you and I are both Lutheran Christians, Lutheran pastors, even though the Wiseberg material is
biblical,
sort of fits in the mere Christianity, biblical space a bit more, but
even shaped in a specifically Lutheran way as well.
Right, that's right. And so, but I think I've met converts before coming into the Lutheran Church who discover what they see as the real pure gospel within our Christian tradition, but they find people who seem to be so timid, so cautious, so reserved, in many ways just culturally, because they come out of the places in the world that Lutheranism took hold. But I remember one person saying, "I can't believe you people aren't shouting this from the rooftops," This is reflected in your comments as well.
Yes. So that's kind of broader background, and then came those little pushes and nudges from different people the Lord placed in our lives, and So seminary studies, writing projects, and continuous studies, ministry, and then seeing those issues, which I mentioned already. One of them being this Sunday-Monday gap, where it seemed that so many Christians just miss out of this joy applying this God's wisdom, not just on joy, but really probably on many blessings. Miss out on them not applying this God's wisdom in their daily lives. So they handicap themselves in a sense in their ability to share the gospel with others, to bring others to this treasure chest, and because they are not equipped with how to do this. And so that continually it's still continually on my mind. It's kind of thoughts which keep rotating and rotating. How can I explain this? How can I share this? And is there a better way? Okay, this is where our culture is right now, and what do they need? How can we give them what they would see that, oh, this truly is what I was longing for in my heart. And
so this is there. It's trying to burst out of you in various ways, and you have your
and that's not me.
Right.
It's not me. It is something supernatural.
Yeah. The Spirit of God is leading you.
Yes. Pushing. And pushy spirit.
And you have your personal vocations, you have your pastoral ministry, but then you have this opportunity that you've seen to do something in addition to all of that. And so Wiseberg Academy. So tell us, what is it? What's your elevator pitch if you have to describe to somebody what Wiseberg Academy is? Because there are still many things you could have done. You could have started a blog, or you could have just started a simple YouTube channel, or you could have done any number of things, but you just decided on a particular model. So what is Wiseberg Academy?
I don't have elevator pitch, I guess. And you see, it did not happen overnight. It was not like I sat down and, okay, let's make Wiseberg Academy, and it was a long series of events, and actually I hate to kind of sound overly pious or but there were.
I would never think that of you.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, people. Yeah. So, but there were several events which I struggle to explain, and so I hesitate to bring them up, but which led me on certain path, which has eventuated as this idea for Academy. And so the concept of God's wisdom, God's good design, I found it so helpful and so powerful. On one hand, it can give us blueprint for our lives, for every aspect of our lives. How to think about ourselves. Who are we? Why are we here? How to build our relationships, how to think about our activities in this world, in our workplace, in society, and so on. How to think and find our proper place in church and Christian community. So all that is given. And so I thought this may be a nice way to present it as a wisdom, as a God's good design. Because you see, presenting in that way, it's not combative, it's not how to put it, it's more conversational, not controversial, but more conversational. You can engage with people and invite them to see this beautiful vision for our lives, and just come and try, see whether it works. And looking at our culture in our society where we live, and it's interesting. I've had the chance to in my life, I've been brought together with different people from mission background who have spent their lives living in different, very different cultures on different continents, and what they all say, they say, surely on surface level, those people are different. They look different, they talk different, they behave differently, and it seems different in society. But under the surface, same humanity, same desires, deep desires of our hearts. And you see, I've been thinking about this topic for a long time. There are what we can truly call universal longings across the world, across the cultures, regardless of whether you believe this or that. It's something that God has built into us. For example, as a necessity or longing to have significance to your life. To know that I'm good. There's meaning in my life. there's purpose. There's purpose to my existence. And I'm not just a lonely person, but there is community. I belong somewhere, and I feel secure. I feel safe about my future. And see, all these are, we can say, completely universal human longings. Now, what happens? Different people, different cultures, different belief systems, they all try to satisfy those longings, just in a different ways. And we can kind of logically trace how different cultures, people from different backgrounds, how they do it. So I think we have the most beautiful, the most satisfying, the most majestic answer to those longings. So I'm just scratching to show people. You may not believe, but just try this. See how well it works.
And so, which people? Who are you hoping to reach with this project?
I don't know, Josh. There are different ways, I guess, to answer that question. So you can have a marketing answer, and so how would you segment your audiences and so on. And on a very basic level, I just wish I could share with as many people as possible what I've received. I just wish I could share that experience, that knowledge, that joy, that hope, that beauty with as many as possible. And so primarily, I would say the whole school project is oriented towards Christians. Mm-hmm. It is oriented towards Christians because I think this is what we miss out. Sunday Monday gap. So we don't have this well articulated and clear idea what it means to live as a Christian, what it means to live your new life in Christ everywhere, in every aspect of your life. So that would be first sort of audience. But then it's also not only sharing wisdom with people, but also equipping them to share what it means to be a Christian with whoever God has placed in their lives.
Right.
So there's a witnessing value or apologetic value. Mm-hmm. On apologetic side, you see, I think lately, I don't know, several decades probably, but exceedingly lately, Christianity is having a very bad press. Mm-hmm. Very bad press. And this is deliberately done that way. And sometimes it seems that even there is sort of pushback from not Christians, but from just the honest people in culture who says, no, actually we have inherited so much, we have received so much through Christian faith and Christendom, but no, overall I think that the press is bad, and in a misunderstood way, not deservedly, but we all failed. That's one thing, but in a misunderstood way, and I thought that this way of wisdom, casting this beautiful vision for our lives, vision to which you actually can relate. Because that vision speaks to these longings of your heart, every single person. And you see, I've been trying to practice it, engaging with non-Christians and sharing this. And you start talking about this, it's like something clicks. Mm-hmm. And people are, I want it. Not necessarily Christian faith, but I can relate. This is what I long for. Mm-hmm. This is what can give me. Where's answer? Where's answer to this? And so I hope there could be apologetical benefit both through Christians, but perhaps for people who just come across and say, yeah, I have those questions. Do you have any answers?
Yeah, I completely agree that it can reach those different audiences. And as well as another thing that I've spoken to Guntars about is that this material can be quite a supplementary resource for pastors in congregations. We'll come to one of the first courses in a moment on relationships, but that's the sort of thing that I thought I can see myself using this together with my other instruction I use for pre-marriage work or ongoing marriage enrichment, that sort of thing. Now, you don't have an elevator pitch, but if I can just give a brief one, I imagine that Pastor Guntars' material fits in a space.
That's a pitch. Yes, you're doing it.
Somewhere between your normal average weekly Christian Bible study that people get together for and say seminary or Bible college. So you have lay people who often want to try and do a bit more. They want to read more. They want to study more. But they don't need to get a degree necessarily. They don't want to have to go and learn Greek and Hebrew necessarily. They don't want to show up at classes. And there's this space in between, I think, that often people are searching for something, and there are different ways of filling that. And so even in America, where I am, studying myself. Currently, they run these lay Bible institutes over the summer where the professors from the seminary will go out and run different courses and topics, and there's a hunger for this sort of thing. And what I see, part of your project is trying to put something else in this space, an online academy. It's not to get a grand degree, but it's more than your...
But we have beautiful certificates.
That you can get certificates. That's indeed true. That's
yes.
right. And maybe the Reverend Guntars would even sign one personally for you. I'm not sure. They're worth a lot since his recent arm wrestling endeavours. And so in that space, though, he's offering something where people can get together online. You can also have interaction with other Christians who are interested in learning more, in growing more, but don't want to go to that next level and don't need to, who want to be equipped for their daily life, for their Christian vocations. I think that's really something, that's really significant, and that's a bit too long for an elevator pitch now that I say it that way, but that's how I envisage it anyway.
Okay.
What does that sound like to you?
It sounded too long for elevator pitch, but it sounded good. Yes. I think on one level, and I think every single person, every single one would just benefit from embracing that wisdom, to learning this God's good and wise design for our lives, and I have no doubt about it. I have not the slightest doubt about it. But we as human beings, we are not interested in what we do not know. How can we be interested in what we do not know? And I think that's in a way, it's kind of I found that it's quite difficult sometimes to engage with people because they do not realize what is on offer. So if I try to put a finger on who would benefit the most, lately I've been thinking, it may be parents. It may be parents. Yeah. Yes. Because you see, we live in this age where, not from Christian perspective, but from perspective of average person, this is strange age, and it seems to be getting stranger and stranger. It seems we have lost wisdom and common sense, and all at once. And I imagine that parents, not just imagine, but in conversations with the fellow parents, and I have had they often struggle. So how do we bring up our children? How do we teach? How do we teach them the very basics, the very foundation, the framework, how to think about this life, how to look at this life? And so I think this wisdom framework can be very helpful because it can give you very strong foundational understanding of who you are, on your identity as created in God's image and likeness, as redeemed by Christ, and of infinite significance and being precious in God's eyes, and with a certain purpose, with a meaning in life, belonging to God's community, and so on. But also giving really this dynamic and very practical blueprint for our lives in every aspect of our lives. So as parent, I think give it to me so I can share with my children. Otherwise they will be shaped by society. That's it. So if that's an age group, I don't know how to make it happen, but I think high school students, if this is something they had on offer in their Christian studies, Christian schools, that's a time when they would give really good foundations how to think about every aspect of their lives.
I think that's a great thought as well. Parents, educators, this is another resource. So you go to the Wiseberg website, and what you'll find on there are some free materials to give you a taste. Yes. You get a fair bit of a taste from listening to Guntars today as well. But then the website and the academy works on a subscription basis, and you can look into that on the website. And then what you'll find on there as a subscriber is lots of content presented by Guntars, going through methodically. It's really excellent sort of stuff. I have to be honest.
Thank you, Josh.
When I started helping Guntars out, it was mainly because he was a friend and he's quite a persuasive guy and he's a little bit stronger than me as well. And so I started off on that basis. But then when I actually looked at the content, I thought, this is great stuff, really great material. But then there's discussion questions and there's follow-up little exercises that you go through, and ideally there'll be a community where you can interact with other people. This is what you'll find on the Wiseberg Academy website. And the first course, can you tell us a little bit about that, Guntars? What did you because I know you've got all sorts of ideas. This could go so many directions, but you had to start somewhere. So what did you start with as the first sort of offering on Wiseberg, and why?
Mm-hmm. So I think I started realizing we all have our limitations, and we have imagined so much more than we actually can accomplish. That's one of the things I'm learning through years of working on that project. And so the structure of academy, when it's completed, the way I imagine it should look like, it begins with the main course, which is for your self-understanding. God's wisdom for your self-understanding.
Who am I?
Yes, who am I and why am I here? As we can see through a biblical narrative. What can we learn about self-understanding from creation account, being created in God's image and likeness with a certain purpose? So what can we learn from account of the fall? What is wrong with us? What is truly wrong with us? Where the problem is and where the solution may be. So what can we learn from a Christ event, account of Christ's life and death and the resurrection? What does it tell? What aspect of our facet of our identity it shapes and gives us, and what new vocations it gives us, and so on. So that would be the foundational one. And then derived from that, you would have, now speaking about why we are here, for relationships, for our economic activities, for our activities in Christian community. So these would be three complementary programs: relationships, workplace, and the church or Christian community. So that's a when it's completed.
And what have you done so far?
Yes, so far I've done one, and Lord willing, in next soon. Soon, very soon, hopefully very soon. So the first program actually I put out was Wisdom for Relationships, and very practical reasons. I thought, somewhat the Lord put me on that trajectory that I've been researching, writing on that topic, engaging for a good 1.5 decades, and I had reasonably published book in Latvian on the topic. So I thought, I'll just take that book and translate and make it into. Adjust a little bit and make it into this first program, along the way learning what's and how's. So that's the first one, wisdom for our relationships, and I actually think it's a very important program. If we look around in our world, where do we see we see the greatest mess everywhere, but human relationships, marriage. It's disaster. So much pain, so much confusion, so much wrong is going on, and so it was interesting. I think as a church, this may have been our blind spot. We haven't noticed, we haven't realized perhaps how important the connection is between strong marriages, strong families, and strong Christian communities.
Right.
There's been more and more research coming out lately, and great work was written by Mary Eberstadt, how the West really lose God. And she makes a strong case that these two things, this integration of marriage and family and decline of the church, are very closely connected. And I haven't seen, at least in my experience, the church doing much about it. Perhaps we just don't realize it, but you see, think even this way. One day, there's government who decides we are going to shut down all the churches. That they may be not in that far future. If we have strong marriages, strong families, that's where the faith will be cultivated and given to the next generation. Not a big deal. But if someone manages to destroy the institution of marriage and a family, you don't need to shut down churches. They will disappear. This is what we are seeing. This is what we are witnessing right now before our eyes. And so in that respect, I think that program actually is very, very significant, very important. Those materials are very important for us as Christians, not just for our lives in this world, but there is this very tight connection between how healthy and is church, and how healthy is our family and marital life.
I think that's really helpful, and I think you're right that will. almost no one we can think of who wouldn't be grabbed by the hook, if you like, of, okay, how are our relationships supposed to function in the way God designed them? And why is it so frustrating? Why is it so difficult? What's going on?
Why isn't this working?
Christians, non-Christians can resonate with that. And so if I hear you correctly, the academy as a whole, there's a logic to the courses, who am I first, and things flow out of that. But in terms of just a strategic decision that you've made to offer the first one, relationships, that's what you'll find, and other ones will follow. And you talked a lot about this issue of identity and the confusion there and addressing that. It's really interesting that another one you've gone to is in terms of the workplace, because this is something that I found in my own ministry that a lot of Christians will ask about is, how does my Christian faith apply to me? Okay, you talked about the Sunday-Monday gap. For a lot of people, where they're going on Monday is into the workplace with a whole different set of values, a whole different set of expectations and relationships. And this is something that you don't necessarily find a lot of material coming from Christian sources to address. And can you just say a few more words about why that's important to you and what you hope to accomplish there?
Why it's important for me, I guess I already mentioned that is part of that Sunday-Monday gap. And if you just think for a second, where do we as adults spend the most of our time awake?
Unfortunately, at work.
Why would you say? See,
I'm
that betrays. No. That you see that betrays sort of assumption.
Yes.
Unfortunately, if we say unfortunately, it's sort of maybe there's underlining assumption that work is not actually that good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just sort of curse after the fall and so on.
Yeah.
But the biblical picture of our active workplace life, it's a beautiful picture. We are created for work. So God begins His work of creation. He orders and arranges His creation. And then He puts us as His representatives, as His stewards over His creation to continue His work of ordering and continuous creation. That's what we are created to do. So biblical view on work is actually, it's a very high view. If we embrace it, probably won't expound on that much, but teaching on vocation, that every activity where we serve other people, it's not only us doing something, but it's actually God using us with all the talents and gifts, abilities He has given to us to serve those people, to serve that community. And there's even one commandment which speaks about work.
Which one's that, Guntars?
Which one is that? Third commandment. 6 days you shall
work.
Yeah, we usually skip that part. And then Sabbath day on the seventh. But the biblical picture for work, biblical picture for business, for entrepreneurship, it's a beautiful picture. It's what maximizes all your gifts and abilities in service of other people. So how great it would be if we can wake up in morning or Monday morning, yes, it's Monday's here. And it's like, oh, thanks God, Friday's here, but thanks God, Monday's here.
And one of the reasons that this one grabbed my attention as well is I think for me as a young, I grew up a Christian, but coming into my sort of young adulthood and my work life for the first time in various capacities, this was definitely a disconnect in my own Christian faith. Is that I think I was actually very interested in delving deeper into the Christian faith and growing in my faith, and obviously I ended up taking that further. But then I would go to work in various places and often conduct myself in a way that really had very little to do with my Christian faith, and for me there was I couldn't even tell you why that's the case, and it's my fault ultimately. But I guess
it's because you just have not heard that vision for your work life. What is God designed? What is God designed for your work life, for your economic activities? And
that's right. And so in my mind, it was sort of something you have to do, and you got to earn a few dollars to do other things. But then we'll sort of clock off, and then we'll start entering the spiritual realm again. Yes. This sort of dichotomous view that you're working against. So I think that's really good, and that brings to mind another possibility for the Wiseberg material that we've talked about, which is that workplaces with Christians who are interested in tapping into these resources could potentially use use this in the future for training or, retreat days and also workplaces, perhaps I think particularly within a Christian framework. I'm thinking of places like, say, schools or aged care facilities, those sorts of places who they want to talk about how we're working together.
How to create a culture which is really good for everyone.
That's right. Within and these are places within the church and there could be material on there that serves as fodder for discussion and those sorts of things, and so lots of possibilities there.
Yeah, it's interesting. We in a sense, I think we live in amazing times, and with all the technological possibilities and so on. But also where the corpus of knowledge, of information, we have access to, and you see, it's when I was working on the program for Wisdom for Workplace, I did a lot of reading and research on different secular thought leaders of our time, business thought leaders of our time in social sciences and so on, and I found something very, very interesting. So, are you aware of TED Talks? Yes, ideas worth spreading. And if you go, let's say, to most popular TED Talks and you look at the ideas and insights those people present, those are biblical insights. Except they came to that discovery, those insights through secular research, but they come to discover. Yes, through observing, through observation and honest research, and saying, actually, you see, whatever counterintuitive this may sound, but that works better. And I look at this data and I say, yes, that's a biblical principle. That's a biblical principle. That's a biblical principle. Except we have the whole picture. Coming from biblical perspective, we have the whole picture. When you do research, you are sort of looking back at what has happened already a posteriori, after the fact, and you say, okay, what worked, what didn't work. But you cannot tell what ought to work.
Yeah, why? Okay, it might work, why?
Yes. This is what this biblical wisdom gives. It tells you how it will work and why it will work. So it's quite amazing. And again, I think it's exciting times ahead for those who want to embrace this way of thinking and operating. It's incredible. It's so tasty, so joyful, so beautiful.
And just to pick up on that theme of joy, that's one of the things I've appreciated in your approach, Guntars, and your material as well, is that we're talking a lot about how Christians live their lives, but it's not at all coming from a perspective of, you're not doing the right thing and you've got to really straighten up and, clean up your act and that sort of thing. But this is a quite a different perspective that you bring when you're thinking of, actually there's something joyful here and there's something potentially that you're missing out on in your Christian life. And I'm not here to tell you what you're not doing and how you should do it, but these are the possibilities and look what opens up to you. And that's a real gift that you bring in your approach as well, for what it's worth.
I think this has been one of this where we have failed to a certain extent as a church, especially as pastors, I think, to present this new life in Christ as something beautiful, giving this beautiful, rich vision which Scriptures actually present to us. We have been, I think church may be called like against people. Something happens and if we are courageous enough, we say, no, that's not a good thing, you shouldn't be doing this. And we have failed to great extent to cast this new positive alternative vision. So look, you are free to choose and to do with your life whatever you want. That's your life. Okay, God has given it to you, but anyway, you have this freedom to do. But now step back a little bit and look at this pathway and look at this beautiful pathway. Just look at what life God has designed for you. How common sense even helps you to see that, wow, this is so good, this is so beautiful. This really speaks to those deep desires of my heart. That's where the answer is. So I think we have failed to do it, and that's one of, again, motivations behind the Academy, that to give tools people, just to help to articulate it. I try to articulate it for myself so I can share in conversations. And
it makes me think of the Apostle Paul speaking about, not just that we discover God's will for our lives and we somehow have to begrudgingly sort of go along with it, but I delight in God's will, my innermost being, and to bring this into our life. This is part of our prayers of confession as well, is that we confess our sins. It doesn't always go right, and there's plenty of suffering in this new way of life as well. But we ask that as the Spirit of God would lead us, we would come to delight in God's will and see the thrill and the excitement and the adventure of this way of living.
Another way to put it, I think, in specifically Lutheran Church, where most of my Christian experience has been, I think we are quite good to get to the moment of, yes, I confess my sins and I receive forgiveness, and I believe I'm forgiven, I'm redeemed from my sinful past and rescued from the devil and sin and hell.
Which is the foundation and the core of everything.
Yes. And that's very often stop. Mm-hmm. We are redeemed from, saved from, forgiven for. But we do not ask the question, okay, what is it for? What are we redeemed for? Mm-hmm. What are we saved for? What is this new life that God has prepared for us? We rarely ask those questions. I think we have a bit failed in that aspect, and I think that's your research.
Yeah, I'm interested in these things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. And I think part of our reluctance as Lutheran Christians is that there have been other parts of the Christian tradition, perhaps, who have spoken about that aspect of the Christian life to such an extent that they miss out on the first bit that you mentioned, the foundation of the gospel, which is even more of a tragedy. But the scriptures give us both, and I often think of the Apostle Paul speaking about the gospel being of first importance, but he doesn't say it's of only importance.
Yes. Or look at Luther's catechisms, large catechism, how much in detail he goes casting this vision for new life. And
right. Well, Guntars, I really appreciate your time today, and you've shared a wonderful vision for what you're trying to accomplish in the Wiseberg Academy, and where
hopefully it's not me trying to accomplish something. Hopefully it is someone else working through me.
Indeed. And so as we wrap things up for today, I just encourage those who are watching and listening to this video to go to the website, wiseberg.com.au, and check out the material there, and consider subscribing and becoming a part of this online community. And if you do have questions similar to the ones that we've been talking about today, if you do want to grow in your Christian faith, or if you're not a Christian but you have questions about where these desires of your heart are coming from and how they can be fulfilled, I do encourage you to check out the Christian faith in general, but particularly Wiseberg Academy, and see if there are some answers there for you. So thanks again, Guntars. God bless you, and God bless you. We'll see you later.